all have their role to play. So each of us has our role to play. We have gifts, we have passions, we have talents that we can make this world a better place with. In the Gospel of Luke, in the first chapter, 37th verse, the writer of Luke tells us, "For nothing is impossible with God." But I find most people put a caveat after that. Yeah, everything's possible, except this dream that I have. There's no need to be more spiritual. We're already spiritual beings having a human experience. And as someone pointed out to me back 20 years ago, there's all this talk in these biblical stories of us being a child of God. But I don't know if you've noticed, but children grow up. So if we're children of God, have we become an adult in God yet? And of course the tradition back then from 2,000 years ago is that if you're a child of someone, you inherit everything that they have. So have you inherited the God presence? So take a moment. What's possible for you? What could you achieve? What could you achieve if you knew there was no possibility you'd fail? What project would you take on? We want to be more than we could possibly think ourselves to be. And like I said, we are connected to something much bigger, and if we get out of the way and allow that presence to go through us, we find we're co-creating our experience with God. It's time to wake up and dream. Every person has a dream, so what happened to it? Is it a worthwhile dream? I've got 5 questions for you, which, of course, if I put in the bulletin, and I will eventually, put up here on the screen. But number 1 is, well, what is that dream? Did it ignite a passion in you, or does it ignite a passion in you right now? I'm not talking about whims. Occasionally you'll get this idea, and it's kind of like, nah, that's not me. It might be a good idea, and that's the strange thing about divine mind, is it tosses out these divine ideas to us that come working their way through our conscious mind, and they're ones that just ignite a passion. Yes, I need to do that. And then there are others that kind of like, meh. So we can let it go, let someone else latch a hold to that divine idea who's more appropriately equipped for it. So, if you do have a dream, if you have this driving passion within you, you have everything with that idea you need to make it come into fruition. Each day of our life, we are born again if we choose to. We have new opportunities that come to us. Now, earlier I mentioned, that, okay, that's fine, Bob, but how is this going to happen? When Carla and I were traveling in the 90s, doing our Prosperity Principles Seminar, I'd say, I learned this wonderful affirmation. When people ask me, how is this going to happen? I say, how is none of my business? I'm in co-creating with God. It's kind of like thinking of God as your agent. Here we've got, some off-season football stuff going on, and all of these rookies and stuff are signing new contracts. And you'll have these agents, that'll take like 33% of whatever they negotiate. Well, for me, I recognize, if I just put 10% of my gross to the places I see God operating that I want to see grow, hey, that's a great percentage to give. So I leave it up to my agent. How is none of my business? I'm open to the possibility, but then I realize I've got to give up something. I've got to give up the excuses. In Carla's and our travels, we've met a lot of ministers, and of course, we were in seminary with some. And there was a minister, middle-aged, with adult children. Her name is Mary, and they went out in this area where there were all these sundews, and they rented on vacation these all-terrain vehicles. And she realizes she's nervous, and she doesn't really want to hurt herself, but here they're all up and over the sand dunes, and just And she'd go up the dune and it would stuck and come down. And she started getting frustrated. And of course, you feel unworthy. And then one of her adult son-in-laws pulled up next to her. Mary, I notice each time you pull the trigger to accelerate and go up the hill, you're hitting the brake with your right foot. And I thought, what a good metaphor. I mean, how many times it's like, yeah, I really want to do that. Oh, but, we're putting on the brake. Number 2, does it align with your core values? I heard a wonderful story of a college professor in philosophy who had one of these big, like 2-gallon pickle jars. He pulled it out and full of rocks. And he said to his students, is this jar full? And they said, yes. So then he pulls out some gravel in a pitcher and pours it in, kind of filters it out. And then he says, is this jar full? Silence in the room. Then he pulls out a pitcher of sand and pours the sand in, and the sand trickling down and all of that. And he says, is this jar full? And college students are pretty bright. They said, no. And then he pulls out a pitcher of water and pours the water in until it's overflowing. He says, each of us has stuff come into our lives. We have administrative assistants who suddenly get sick in the morning, and we find ourselves focused on something else. It says, so think of this, okay, you've got rocks, gravel, sand, and water. Your rocks are your core values. Make sure they're in there, make sure they're solid, and then the other stuff, small potatoes. But it allows you to know what it is you need to embrace when you're having a challenging moment. I had heard about a woman back about 30 years ago. She had this dream that she wanted to perform on cruise ships. The only challenge to that is that to do that, you had to be on the ship for like 4 months straight. That was your commitment. She got married, had some kids, and yet she still had this dream of something she wanted to do. And so her husband was fully supportive. She practiced with right connections. She ended up as a performer on a cruise ship, gone for 4 months. She realized, wow, I've had a chance to fulfill my dream, but as time went by, she's kind of like, this isn't me anymore. My core values are my kids, my husband. I want to be with them and have a quality time with them. So at the end of that 4-month contract, she went back home. But that's part of the challenge is sometimes we have these various inspirations that come to us that are very appropriate at the moment. But we need to let go of them and move on to the next inspiration. A lot of you know I was a radio and TV news guy for 17 years. I was thinking that this morning, and just as I was doing all of this, I was like, well, there have been a few times where all of the brown organic refuse is hitting the rotary oscillator in a newsroom where you're trying to get a newscast on the air, and it's just kind of just stay focused. Let go of the fears, let everything go around. And so, but I look at all of the various chapters in my life, being, first when I was a kid, I thought I wanted to be a doctor because I found out doctors made a lot of money. And then I realized, no, I was a good writer, so I became a journalist, and then became broadcast journalism because they said I got a pretty good voice for that kind of stuff. And, I ended up getting a Master of Science in Journalism, working, at all these TV stations over those 17 years, and then finally with the all-news radio station up in Chicago. But there came that time where I got that very strong inspiration that I needed to walk away and start doing these seminars. I discovered Unity in Chicago. And so I really had to grit my teeth. It was not easy, and there was a lot of doubts and stuff, but it happened. In fact, I did it a little bit too slowly. What a coincidence. God had me fired with about a third of the staff in the radio station. If you don't get on your way, God kind of comes by and gives you a dope slap to the back of the head. You're dope! Number 3 is, are you willing to grow? And growing often required, is change. We have pleasant experiences of change and unpleasant experiences of change. I heard the story of a young man going out fishing along a river. And, of course, wherever you fish, there's the tradition of if you get a small fish, you toss it back in. He's looking down the river, and there's this older man who he'll catch a big fish, and then he'd pull out a tape measure, and he'd toss it back in the river. And then suddenly, he'd have one come up, and he'd put it in the bucket of another. So he couldn't help but walk down and ask, well, what's... Can't help but notice that you're throwing some of the back in the river. Why do you do that? He goes, well, I need to have fish that fit in my frying pan. And so what's your frying pan? Can you get a bigger pan? Do you need a pan? These are the kinds of things we have to ask ourselves. Number 4, am I co-creating with God? I've already done this a few minutes ago, but in the Gospel of Matthew, 18th chapter, 18th verse, 18:18, Jesus is teaching, he says, truly I say to you, whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. As we talked about, we have these two kingdoms that Jesus would talk about, especially in Matthew, the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven. Kingdom of God is that absolute realm that is constant no matter what year it is. And then there's the kingdom of heaven, which is our individual growing awareness that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So, what we bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. And what we loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. So we let it go out of our consciousness. And Jesus goes on. Again, I say to you, if two of you agree on earth about anything they ask, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. Over the years, since I was in seminary, I've got a prayer partner, one of my classmates. We call and talk once a week and might just 5 or 10 minutes, but it's kind of like, what do you want to pray about? Do you have a prayer partner? Give yourself just a chance to be guided, someone who you can touch base with every week and pray with them. Bring some clarity to what you want to be able to support. I'm going to go ahead and put up the slide there of Wayne Dyer. A lot of you are familiar with Wayne Dyer. His big splash was back in 1976. He was a doctor of education, taught at one of the universities in New York. And when he speaks, sometimes people are like, "Wow!" And someone said, "You ought to write a book." And so he wrote a book, but nobody wanted to publish it. So that he was selling it out of the back of his station wagon, as he described. And it kept going until suddenly, one of the publishers who refused him before was suddenly very interested in publishing his book. And of course, he did so many specials for public broadcasting system. But he embraced the unity principles and tried to take it out to a wider audience. Rather than talking about God, he talked about source and all that. But he was always that sense of what you think is possible. And he was at the airport once. He had a speaking gig in Chicago. He's out on the West Coast, and they said, "I'm sorry, we had to cancel the flight, weather, blah, 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 blah." He's okay. What else, what other flights could I get to Chicago on? And the ticket agent was kind of, "I can't find anything. You're not going to get there tonight." And Wayne took a breath and said, "Can I talk to your supervisor?" And, so the ticket agent goes back, and the supervisor comes up and recognizes Wayne Dyer. And he says, "Your ticket agent tells me that that he cannot find a way for me to get to Chicago tonight. I don't doubt that that's what he sees. What I need is someone who thinks there is a possibility, a way that I can get to Chicago tonight." And the supervisor kind of got it. He was looking at it, and sure enough, it was a little. And Kirkland and I have done this a few times too, where suddenly we're taking several different directions, but we got there. And sure enough, he booked him, and he said he got there, walking in about 50 minutes before he was supposed to speak. But he let him know ahead of time, I'm coming, this will be when I'm arriving, blah, 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 blah. So, what is possible? Go ahead and put the next slide up. Is it good for others? The reason that each of us is given these spiritual gifts, like I've said earlier, is that we bring special gifts to the world that we can make this world a better place with. And as I've mentioned before, I also realize one of the reasons we're all put here together, we're all thrown into this amazing sphere, the third rock from the sun, is that I have difficulty seeing the divine in myself. But I can see it very clearly in you. And that's the magic of it, is we can see the divine in each other. We can help lift each other up, like we talked about last week. It's kind of like, sometimes I need to have somebody fluff my aura. So, these are the takeaways you got in your bulletin. So what is my dream? Really look at those things you're passionate about. You hear these stories. I know she's long since gone, but a Unity minister, it wasn't until after her alcoholic husband died and she was 65 years old that she became a Unity minister and proceeded to be a minister for the next 30 years. So if you're thinking it's too late, here again, what's your excuse? Are you ready to give up the excuses? Does it align with my core values? Is this something that I can really get behind because my values are very clear? Am I willing to grow? And if that means I might need to change some things. Am I co-creating with God? And 5, is it good for others? There's here again, if we're seeing the best in each other, we're also lifting each other up. If it's good for others, it's amazing how much more powerful that kind of a dream is. Well, you won't believe this, but I actually have a 3-minute video for you from Steve Hartman of the CBS Evening News.
Young boys aren't easily appalled, but 11-year-old Preston Sharp sure knows the feeling.
Yeah, I was really surprised.
And disappointed.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed, yeah.
Had you seen him like that before?
Not this angry and passionate.
Preston's mom, April, says what upset her son so was visiting his grandpa's grave in Redding, California, and realizing not every veteran in the cemetery had a flag. April says even hours later, he was still harping on it.
I was like, son, if you're going to complain about something, you have to do something about it or let it go. And he's like, well, I'm going to do something about it, Mom.
Next thing she knew, Preston was taking odd jobs and soliciting donations to buy flags and flowers for every veteran in his grandpa's cemetery. And when that cemetery was covered, he moved on to another, and then another. And here we are, 2 years and 23,000 graves later. And he does this every week, rain or shine, especially rain.
Why?
Like, they were out there in the rain doing their job, protecting us.
Preston says coming out here in the rain, or in this case, 100-degree heat, is the least he can do.
Thank you for your service, Michael.
His devotion really is enormous.
Thank you for your service, Samuel.
And contagious.
Thank you guys so much for coming out today.
Now, when word gets out that Preston will be at a cemetery, a lot of folks feel compelled to join in.
It's just amazing.
People like Vietnam veteran Fred Loveland.
What he's doing brings them out because they can't believe that a young man in this country is doing what he does.
We got to put the flower in.
It is a movement of young and old,
Thank you for your service, Lewis.
of those who serve their country, and those who are so grateful they did.
Thank you for your service, Alan.
All led by this little Pied Piper of patriotism, who saw an injustice and decided to do something about it. It's just another one of 365 chances to do what's right.
Thank you for your service, Norman.
Steve Hartman, on the road in Redding, California.
The Gospel of Matthew, 18th chapter, 11th verse. Oops, hold on here. I got the wrong page. Gospel of Matthew, 17th chapter, 20th verse. Jesus said to them, "For truly I say to you, if you have faith as small as a grain of mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible to you." And may you always be open to God's guidance and grace. And now it's time for some special music.
To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to fight right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know if I'll only be true to that glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest, and the world will be better for this, that one man, scorned and covered with scars, still strove with his last ounce of courage to dream the impossible dream, to reach the unreachable star. Thank you.
I think Reverend Bob's been hiding his light under a bushel. Thank you. That was lovely. All righty. If this is your first time at Unity, we're glad you're here, and especially that baby. I love hearing a baby babble. Hi. We hope that you are finding a place of like-minded people and a place to belong. We teach spiritual tools that can help you no matter what is going on in your life. Generosity is important to us. We will donate $5 to a local charity of your choice. Just write your email on the card in our welcome packet and leave it in our office. We don't want you to put you on the spot, but if you'd like to raise your hand, we will bring you a welcome packet, or you can just pick one up on your way out. You're going to get one anyway. Thank you for being with us. We now have an opportunity to support our spiritual cooperative. If you would like to donate by credit card, go to our website, unityhillcountry.org, and click on the donate button. Please set up an automatic weekly or monthly contribution. If you would prefer to mail us checks, please mail them to the Unity of the Hill Country, 1016 Jefferson Street, Kerrville, Texas, 78028. We thank you in advance for your generosity. Would the ushers please bring the offering bags up so that we can say our blessing? Together, divine love as me multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. I send it forth with my blessings and my love. We open our hearts in gratitude for these freely given donations. We send these gifts forward through our congregation and into our world, blessing all that it affects. Thank you. We have a few brief announcements. If you'd please refer to the schedule on the back of your takeaways handout. Reverend Bob, do you have any special announcements today? Nope. Okay. All right, so the Serenity Al-Anon meeting is at noon on Mondays. If you have a friend or loved one suffering from addiction and you need support, please visit Al-Anon. And I have to tell you, Al-Anon saved my life. It is a very good program. The Naked Now book study meets tomorrow, what is tomorrow? Tomorrow is the 29th. Okay. So we won't be having the book study Monday. Codependence Anonymous meets weekly on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Please visit coda.org for more information. The Center of Calm Meditation Group meets weekly 10:30 a.m. on Thursdays. You also have an opportunity to use the meditation chapel before service on Sundays starting at 10:15 a.m. Kerrville Hearing Solutions is a monthly self-help group affiliated with the Hearing Loss Association of America. And this actually is an old school. Okay. Tuesday. Okay. If you are on Facebook, join our new group, Unity Spiritual Network, to stay connected with our online community online. All right. Our parking lot does look great. And if you would like an opportunity to serve in our community, please be a Sunday host, usher, daily word reader, kitchen helper, please let us know if you'd like to do that. There's sign-up sheets in the lobby. And with that, we've come to the end of our gathering. Please join us in the peace song, followed by our prayer for protection. And please stay for fellowship after service.